Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's workshop, Universal Design for Learning, Shifting Perspectives for Students with Learning Disabilities in the Classroom. My name is Assig5, and I work as an accessibility consultant here on campus. The purpose of this workshop is to provide a brief overview on universal design and universal design for learning, or UDL, and to offer some examples of how UDL can change how students with learning disabilities participate, interact, and engage in the classroom, and really in academics in general. Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon's workshop, Universal Design for Learning, Shifting Perspectives for Students with Learning Disabilities in the Classroom. My name is Assig5, and I work as an accessibility consultant here on campus. The purpose of this workshop is a brief overview of the key principles of UDL and how it can impact students with learning disabilities in the classroom. There's a lot of content on this topic, which unfortunately we will not have time to cover today, but my goal is to begin the conversation, to begin talking about how we can change curriculum in classrooms to include and engage all types of learners. What do you think this cartoon is trying to illustrate? The cartoon reads, "How do you know I have a learning disability? Maybe you have a teaching disability." This cartoon comments on the ways that classrooms and curriculum are constructed to support a small percentage of learners. Many students with learning disabilities learn in ways that are not conducive to traditional teaching methods, which places them at a disadvantage. The social model was initially introduced in the mid-1970s. Its basic premise is that society disables impaired people. Disability is something that is imposed on top of our impairments. So it really focuses on shifting how we look at disability from the individual with impairments to looking at how society really focuses on those impairments and creates a very disabling environment. And this can happen both in the physical environment, in the academic environment, in organizations. It can affect how we move in society, how we participate in society, and how we access services in society. The social model focuses on organizational barriers, attitude barriers, and environmental barriers, which highlight an individual's impairment and creates inaccessible environments. Can anyone think of examples of how students with learning disabilities experience organizational, attitude, and environmental barriers in the classroom? Let's take a moment and just think about those three areas and how students with learning disabilities experience barriers, both organizationally, attitudinally, and environmentally. And after that, please share your comments or your thoughts with a partner. The social model seeks to reduce some of these barriers to make it easier for people with disabilities to participate in society without focusing on their impairments. From the social model came this idea of universal design, which initially focused mainly on physical spaces. The idea was that barrier-free spaces would benefit everyone, not only people with disabilities, and that changes were needed to account for an aging population as well as a very diverse population. There are 7 main principles of universal design. So remember, we're looking right now mainly at physical spaces. So looking at how physical spaces are equitable in that they are able to provide access to a diverse population, whether that includes individuals with mobility impairments, elderly, individuals carrying packages, individuals with strollers. It must be equitable to include the diversity in our population. Flexibility. It must be simple and intuitive. Physical spaces must be able to have all people navigate in and out easily, simply. It also includes perception information, tolerance for error, low physical effort, and really a discussion about size and space. Universal design for learning takes these principles of universal design and applies them to learning environments by focusing on three main areas: multiple means of representation, multiple means of expression, multiple means of engagement. Multiple means of representation really means giving learners various ways of learning information and knowledge. It means providing clear expectations of what is required, activating background knowledge, and really it means teaching the information in many ways in order to appeal to all different types of learning styles, whether that's kinesthetic learning style, reading, writing modes, quizzes, games. It requires that classrooms and asks that spaces really account for the diversity in the way that students learn. Multiple means of expression. This is where learners are provided with alternatives for demonstrations of what they know, offering different ways for students to demonstrate their knowledge, not only through taking tests, but maybe through take-home essays, fieldwork, a video, a presentation. It asks classrooms to provide diverse ways for students to show and demonstrate their knowledge. Multiple means of engagement. This really looks at how to tap into the learner's interests, how to challenge students appropriately, and how to motivate students to want to learn. Given that many students with learning disabilities struggle academically, incorporating these principles can help students with LD really to fully participate in the classroom. For example, many students do poorly on courses which rely heavily on testing rather than assignment-heavy courses. What would a classroom look like if students had the option of completing either a test or a take-home assignment as their final grade or mark? Let's look at a little statistics. In post-secondary, in the year 2013-2014, just over 28,500 students at Ontario colleges registered with disability opposites. 19% of Ontario college students reported a disability, and 14% accessed services. So we know that there are many students with disabilities who choose not to connect with disability services offices. And there could be a lot of reasons why students choose not to connect with our services. Some students want to be self-sufficient, so they really want to be independent. They want to use the accommodations only as a backup, or they want to try and negotiate the accommodation process on their own. Some students do not connect with services in order to avoid negative social reactions. Some students aren't really aware of the accommodations and don't think they might qualify because one might not be disabled enough. Some students have had negative experience with professors and they don't want to connect with our services. And some students believe that accommodations are not needed. So there's a lot of reasons why students may not choose to connect with disability services offices. There are multiple ways that we engage students with disabilities in the classroom. Many times, there's the exclusion method, and that is where students with disabilities, shown here in the red, are excluded from mainstream classrooms. And this is shown here in the green. Another option, and this is very common in some schools as well, is the separation model. And that is where students with disabilities are separated from the mainstream classroom and are given diverse material and diverse content. The integration model is where all students are in the same classroom together, but students with disabilities are really separate from the curriculum, from the classroom, from the way that they engage in the classroom. The inclusion method is where students with disabilities and diverse learners are really considered when the curriculum is created, when classroom spaces are created, and really account for the diversity of all students. And so you can see here that both students that traditionally are in mainstream classrooms and students with disabilities are included as part of a classroom experience. The diagram here reads, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Universal Design for Learning gives students options for demonstrating their knowledge, offering alternatives for testing, providing the entire class with additional time or multiple times to take the test are example of good Universal Design for Learning practices. Let's do an activity. Many students with learning disabilities experience a barrier with note-taking in class. In small groups of 2 or 3, please come up with possible solutions under the medical model and under the social model, and then we will come back as a large group and share our responses. Thank you for participating in this workshop. This workshop has provided a brief introduction into how students with learning disabilities benefit from UDL classrooms. Are there any questions? Thank you. Please share one thing that you found useful or helpful or interesting today.